everyone, it's BB. We're going to be continuing on with Brilliant Shadows, so without further delay, let's get to it. The letter took the messenger hawk a day. The return reply was succinct. We shall leave on the morrow. We have a great deal of interest in this grey mage, both his origin and his abilities. A week passed before the heads actually arrived. Though apparently hurried, they took their time approaching the palace, ensuring they had lodgings and then having their horses properly stabled before even beginning the approach.
Are you ready?
Prude gave her a somber nod. Hector patted his pocket, full of black roses, and nodded. Ash's own pockets were full as well. She didn't really know why, but they were a comfort.
This idea still terrifies me.
It'll be fine.
I know my curiosity can only go so much longer without being sated.
Prude pulled Hector in close, and the two kissed.
We'll get you back, okay?
Hector nodded, and Prude stepped into one of the rooms immediately to the side of the court, hiding behind layers of curtains.
They're coming.
I thought you didn't want to use this form of communication anymore.
Yeah, but your messenger bird is dumb, and they're
Closing in on her.
Have you decided to do anything about it?
I don't know yet. I don't know what side they're on in this fight.
Not yet.
You've got to make your decision quickly. The cultists are closing in. I can sense them.
Don't you have
Any
any...
advice?
No, I'm done. I don't do this anymore. Too many mistakes.
Please.
Just trust your heart. It's one of the only good ones I know anymore.
Ash's mind fell silence, save for her own thoughts. Before she had a chance to collect them, Zachariah opened the door, leading the way for Luciana and an enormous cloaked figure. One of her golems, likely. A good form of protection on a long road. The grey mages were closing in, if the voices could be believed. That would be rather convenient, and besides, it provided some sense of their motivation if they were about to attack now.
It's good to see you again, all of you. I'm sorry for how things ended last time, but I am afraid the rules are rules.
We understand.
Why is Mr. Warlock in chains?
Did you bring the Rod of Finding?
Luciana's face turned to a mask of shock, while Zachariah's only grew harder.
Prudence?
Please, the Rod.
Zachariah removed the rod from the sheath at her hip. The rod burst to life almost immediately. Zachariah had apparently already performed the spell. She waved it before her eyes and sneered. The two black dots for Ash and Belinda, a white for Elfnod, and a mottled shimmering grey wood where Hector stood.
You always were a monster, weren't you, Warlock?
This is why we asked you here. We believe there are more. Please, I beseech you, use the rod on the rest of the city and aid us in ferreting out the remaining assassins.
Before we do that, please, have your guards leave, and then lock the doors. What we are about to discuss cannot be overheard. We have my golem to protect us in an emergency. Guards will be of little consequence to a grey mage anyway.
The king beckoned to her guards, and they did as commanded. As the latches sounded, Luciana seemed to breathe a sigh of relief.
I admit, I had heard rumors of a couple intending to produce a child grey mage. But that was so many years ago, and no member of either order ever produced reports of such. I had simply assumed such attempts had bore no fruit. To think I had such a creature under my tutelage for so long. And yet I cannot help but wonder at the purpose of this farce.
How did you know that Hector did not kill my daughter?
Luciana raised her hand and tapped at her mark.
You forgot to cover the boy's hand.
Hector flushed as he looked down to the exposed spider.
But Grey mages don't lose their mark when they eat another's organs.
No, but the mark changes.
Some might say it corrupts.
How do you know so much?
We are the heads of the orders. We would be remiss if there were any parts of magic we were not well versed in.
Luciana laughed.
It's the primary reason Zachariah was so often at odds with Mr. Warlock.
Fine, you know it was a sham to bring you here. We need your help to find the Grey Mages who are hunting us. We think they're after Ash. We think she may be paired to one. That, or they may be after me.
That's awful presumptuous of you.
What?
No. They were after Prudence and the king.
Luciana, how do you know of this?
Because, my dearest niece, we hired them.
What? What? Niece? What? What? Luciana tore the cloak from the golem at her side. The golem wasn't like anything Ash had ever seen before. It was wood.
I cannot thank you enough for all your research. I had never imagined how much more effective a golem crafted from wood could be, until I saw your research into plants.
Oh, okay. Evil lesbians, here we go.
I haven't quite gotten reanimation of plants down, but, well, golems were a simple matter for me, and startlingly effective. Now that we have the doors locked, and all the main players trapped in here with us.
Luciana extended her arm, sickly green energy coiling around each finger.
Golem, kill!
The creature closed the distance to Hector in a moment, and Ash heard a wet snapping noise as he flew like a ragdoll across the room. Elfnod did not even have a chance to draw his sword as another blow left him bent awkwardly around a pillar. Blinda, right beside him, leapt desperately out of the way of a stomp. Zachariah began to slowly, almost gleefully draw her blade, marching towards the king. Prude was upon her in the blink of an eye, leaping from the side room, arm flashing as she drove it straight towards Zachariah's face.
We're related! Let me guess. That white spike monstrosity on top of your head used to be red?
Zachariah sneered. Ash became aware that she had been standing stunned. She had to help. Turning to Luciana, she curled a finger and then asked to a curse at the head mage. Luciana barely moved as the curse dissolved mid-flight. Ash twined a bolt of malignance, broiling green with necrotic energy, and unleashed the wave of rot toward Luciana. The head dissolved it with a single breath. The curse that struck Ash came quick and sudden. She felt her fingers bend and curl awkwardly, the bones contorting. Ash could only barely stifle a scream as she clawed desperately at the distant ball of whiteness, the same she had called upon to empower her reanimation spells. The grip felt almost tangible as she found it. The pain seemed to fade slightly, and she looked up to meet the gaze of not Luciana, but her golem. The creature raised an enormous fist high above its head, and Ash reached deeper. Inside her swirled the magics of a pair, black and white, intermingling wildly. She slammed her open palms down upon the creature's foot and felt the sap inside it begin to flow. Scars left by the woodsman's axe began to close, and ebony inker rending its way across the open wounds, clotting them shut. New growth burst wildly until, arching across the creature's back, a bloom of midnight leaves began to unfurl. The white-hot green of its eyes faded to a dull grey, and then to a lightless black. The creature opened its hand, as though seeing it for the first time. It turned to examine its entirely, its leaves seeming to swell as it breathed.
What did you do?
Ash found her feet beneath her and forced herself to stand.
I took your golem.
I don't need it to defeat you!
Ash felt the curse strike like a blow to the head, and then 1,000 more. It hammered with a fury that blinded her. She fell to her knees. Somewhere in the distance she could hear the woman's footsteps click as she came closer.
You dirty little girl! I will find the secret to your magic, and I will ensure that history will write its origin as me. My discovery will change necromancy as we know it. Nothing more than an unfortunate victim of an assassination!
Pain struck Ash, pinpricks in her hand, an afterthought to the hammering in her skull. Opening her eyes, she pulled forth a black rose. She gasped, pain lashing at her thoughts, catching the sweet scent of the dead rose. Ash felt it burn inside her long before she knew what to do with it. She reached up, desperately clawing at the air, arching her hand towards the head, as the woman snarled, bearing down at her. Then the air rippled, a shadow cast across reality, and in a bloom of darkness, Luciana fell. The pain stopped immediately, and Luciana arrived on the floor. Ash couldn't even tell how much of her was missing, but somehow the head still lived. Ash forced herself to her knees. Elfnod and Belinda were still out, though Belinda had dragged herself to Elfnod and seemed to be trying to soothe him back to awareness. At least they weren't dead. Hector was motionless, even his chest did not rise. Where was Prude? Ash searched the courtroom. On the far side of the courtroom, Zachariah had let go of her sword, the tip of the blade buried deep into the wall. Oh my god, its length held a motionless King Celeste, and Prude writhing wildly. Pierced through the left of her chest, she gasped for breath, blood pouring from between her lips, magic desperately trying to seal the wound.
Prudence!
The sword belongs to one of the Grey Mages we hired, you know. Luciana was smart enough to convince me not to bring.
Zachariah stopped mid-sentence, turning back to see Luciana on the ground, almost half of the body seared away.
No.
Zachariah charged towards her love, dropping to her knees, tears in her eyes.
No. No. No, no, no. Nothing was worth losing you, my love. No kingdom was worth this price.
Zachariah began to blaze with a violent white light, pouring it into the charcoal that remained of the most grievous of her wife's wounds.
Come back. Come back.
Zachariah pressed her head against Luciana's chest and closed her teary eyes, smiling.
She's breathing. She has a pulse. After all this, I will heal her. She may lose an arm, even her legs, but she will never lose me.
Zachariah slowly placed a kiss on the lips of her unconscious lover and stood up, holding 3 stone remnants of debris.
3 of you left.
Elfnod had finally opened his eyes, and Belinda stared into them, smiling. Her expression suddenly turned blank as a small piece of debris hit the wall behind her. Elfnod looked confused until blood began to pour from a gaping hole in her chest, where her heart should be. She collapsed. Another rock ricocheted wildly as it detonated Elfnod's shield.
You've been practicing.
Ash pulled free a fistful of the black roses, and drawing in a breath of their violent fragrance, she led forth another gout of the black flames. The inky black washed over Zachariah like water over glass.
An interesting trick.
Golem, stop her!
Ash's voice cracked as she shouted, but the creature seemed to hear, closing in on Zachariah and swinging with all its might. Zachariah met the punch head-on, swinging with all of her strength. The wood splintered as she grabbed an arm and tore it free. A kick brought the beast low, and a third strike left it motionless.
Hector never really realized how much power we truly wielded as heads, and yet he dismissed us so easily, as though he always had some trick up his sleeve, a trump card.
Zachariah hefted the enormous beast above her head, and with a motion as quick as an afterthought, she sent it crashing into the forms of Elfnod and Belinda.
Tell me, Miss Veronica Ashmar, do you have a trump card?
Ash reached into her pocket. No flowers remained. She tried to draw upon the wells once more, but no spell she could think of seemed enough. In desperation, she threw her strongest curse. Zachariah took it head on, but no hammering pain struck her. No twisting of joints, no boiling of blood, no searing pain. No I can't even say that word. Decay. She merely stood.
I wish I could make your death slow. Let you know exactly how angry I am. But I can only imagine it will be a few more moments before those doors open. Can you hear the ringing in your ears over the pain that you feel right now? You're likely so numb, it wouldn't be worth my time to torture you anyway. Goodbye, Ash.
A blade blossomed through Zachariah's throat and ripped outwards, spraying Ash with a rain of blood. Zachariah fell to her knees and slumped to the floor. The figure in the grey cloak walked over to Luciana and sliced open her throat. Bloodlust would kill them both in seconds. The cloak was familiar, a pale grey reminiscent of... Suddenly it clicked. The figure following them in the rain. The figure she rode past in the snow. This was the Grey Mage. The assassin approached her and reached out their right hand. There was a phoenix mark.
You need to save your friends.
Momentarily stunned, Ash struggled to find her response.
How? Aren't you the paladin in our pairing? I felt that power.
Ash gestured towards her mark.
What? No. I don't have any powers like that. Spiraling stars, girl. Use the white magic you were using earlier with the plant.
What? I don't know how to do that.
I do.
Hector had finally stirred. The deathly twist in his back seemed to have straightened, but his legs were still broken, bent sharply in the wrong direction at each femur.
Please bring Prude and her mother to me. Get them off that sword.
Ash found both of them unmoving and tried to pull the sword free. It remained stuck. The man in the cloak pushed her aside and tore it free with a practiced ease that made Zachariah's earlier strength seem that of a child. Tossing the sword aside, he hefted both bodies and brought them to Hector. Hector checked the king first and flinched, moving wordlessly to Prude.
She can still live.
How? You haven't used your light magic since you were a child. Even Zachariah couldn't heal a wound like that.
I have a plan.
Then why not the king?
She is more broken than I can repair.
Please! Help!
Ash and the cloaked man turned to the rubble of the golem and the pillar that it had collapsed on.
Get him out of there.
Ash staggered back to her feet and rushed to the rubble. Between her and the man, the rubble was gone in moments. Beneath, Alfnod barely held together a shield protecting himself and the lifeless, wide-eyed body of Belinda.
Please. Help her.
Beneath the hood, the man grimaced. Ignoring the clear lack of acceptance of the grim fate of Alfnod's pair, the man scooped up her body, his hood finally falling back. Ash gaped as the cooking boy carried the body to Hector. The sight was almost enough to distract her from Hector himself. In Hector's hand was a beating heart. A pale white glow pulsed in its depth, as arteries and veins and what had appeared to be a number of organs snaked wildly around it as he forced it into Prude's chest. The tendrils flailed for a moment before burrowing into her body and dragging the heart into place. The sight sickened her, and she turned her disgust to Hector. It was then that Ash noted the gaping wound in Hector's own chest.
Please, save her.
Alfnod was near delirious himself, clearly at least in shock if not critically injured. He screamed one more time, and he seemed to fall asleep. Hector grimaced and forced his hand back inside his chest. He did not scream, but as she watched, Ash could hear flesh tearing. The second heart writhed, but seemed to lack the life of the first.
Put this in her chest.
The cook nodded and emulated the action Hector had taken with the first. The dark thing settled into Belinda's chest like an animal in a den. Hector closed his eyes and placed his hand over the wound in his chest. Why hadn't the doors opened? Surely the guards would have arrived by now. She could hear the pounding now. Turning, she found the metal rent, twisting the doors together, sealing them shut.
I can't be caught here. Not if I have any hope of stopping the cultists.
The cultists?
The Grey Mages are still coming. You said in your message.
Ash surveyed the carnage.
We're not ready.
No, not the Grey Mages. The Knights of the Blade.
Who?
The boy gestured at the two heads.
I don't have time for that right now. I have to leave.
Please, just tell me who you are. We're paired. That means something, you know.
I'm starting to realize that. But we're about to have company. Take care. We'll meet again.
Please, at least tell me why I wasn't paired to a girl.
That was an odd question, but it had bothered her more than she cared to admit.
Well, I actually am a gal.
What? A hand passed over the boy's face and revealed a face almost as alien as it was beautiful. Black skin like blue ebony and long flowing locks of hair as white as the purest snow. She had eyes that shone like polished jade, and her lips stained a dark red, peeled back to reveal perfect teeth, save for canines just a shade too long to be human. A shade too long? She twitched, ears roughly 7 inches long, and leaned in close. Ash smelled fire and cinnamon on her. She was the most beautiful person Ash had ever seen.
My name is Tara, but try to keep calling me Cooking Boy, and do your best to keep the whole changeling thing a secret.
Wow. Without another word, she changed back, and with a single backflip, disappeared through the second-story window she had apparently broken to get in. The door gave way and the guards rushed in. Court mediations rushed alongside them. The scene was consumed around her, as all parties involved received attention. A voice asked her again and again if she was okay. She couldn't have said who asked.
I'm fine.
It was all she could manage. Her heart was beating too loud to hear her own thoughts. And in one, blinded by the light. Hold on a second. Oh my god. Oh my god. That was... Oh my god. Okay. I'm okay. Ash found Prude in front of the courtyard. She heard her whisper something faintly.
She's gone.
Prude hastily wiped her eyes.
Oh, hey Ash.
She took a seat, settling in by her.
You okay? No.
The clarity with which she spoke, the word hit Ash like a brick. Prude turned to Ash, wiping away tears with the back of her bare right hand. The sight struck a chord deep inside Ash, and she held back her own tears.
I had 22 years to learn about my kingdom, but I didn't. I spent the entire time focusing on magic, on my life. I spent the entire time assuming that one day, when I had graduated, I would have time. Time as a court mage, under my mom's careful tutelage. Time to learn everything I needed to know about being a king. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Prude gestured back to the throne room.
Before today, I'd always known of inhuman races, but before now, I couldn't have imagined that I would meet them. They're supposed to be rare, secreted away in a corner of the world so distant that Celeste would never have been expected to entertain their ambassadors.
Tears glittered in the corner of Prude's eyes.
They are asking us for aid. Armies, trades, goods, anything we can spare. I don't even know what we can spare, let alone if I should. I wasted so much time.
Oh, no, Prude, it's not wasted.
Prude swung up her arm like the lash of a whip.
My pair is gone. My partner is in a coma. I can barely draw any of the light I once could. I have the power of a novice at best. I have nothing to show for having spent years learning and neglecting my kingdom.
Her eyes were red from the tears.
Prude, you need to take a break. For now, leave the diplomats to one of your court mages.
Ash kissed Prude on the forehead and held her close.
Go get some sleep.
Prude did not argue. Ash let out a long sigh and marched to the courtyard. They had yet to complete restorations on the throne room, where the court was normally held, so Prude had taken to holding court in the garden directly out the front. Her breath caught in her throat as her gaze met the sharp eyes of a pair of enormous lizards. The rumours about them had certainly been strange. They seemed to stand to attention as she arrived, both forcing smiles across their two human visages.
Hail and well met, my lady. May I ask where your king has gone?
The tiny creature spoke, while the larger stood silent.
She is unwell and has been forced to adjourn court.
I see. Wish her well for me.
The lizard shot his companion a wary glance, and the companion returned it.
Might we treat with you, perhaps?
I am able to speak on my king's behalf, though any accords must be ratified by her.
Excellent! Then I shall surmise you of the situation.
The larger of the two stepped down and slapped down a huge gem, to which the smaller then mounted wordlessly.
You see, my kingdom is under siege, and we are desperate for aid. We have many fine goods, rare grains and bugs, delicious and succulent fruits. We also have marvelous arch-engineering.
Arch-engineering? Is that a form of magic?
No. It's nothing like what we've seen of your magic, but the foods we offer may as well be.
They are a delight on your tongue, mammal.
The second creature had spoken as though from a script, the smaller silencing him as he had attempted to call her a mammal? Well, she had been thinking of these two as lizards. She wished she could help the creatures. They certainly looked desperate, but she knew the kingdom had no army of significance enough to march on a location so distant. And they really had offered it very little in terms of compensation. Food and some false form of magic? The food would spoil, and without time or an expert to research the realistic applications of the arch-engineering, it would be a costly gamble.
I'm afraid we are unable to offer you aid at this time. Our kingdom is in a time of unrest. We cannot offer troops to a new ally before we can even find the earth beneath our feet.
The little creature looked crestfallen.
I see. I'm sorry to hear that.
Mama Lady call us ally. Negotiations quicker than expected. We are allies now.
The smaller of the pair suddenly perked up. His eyes gleamed like polished gems as he met Ash's gaze.
Yes, I suppose an alliance can certainly begin between us.
With a flourish like that of a street magician, the smaller lizard produced a volume of paper that struck fear into Ash as she thought he had produced the very weapon that had slain the previous king.
We must discuss terms!
Trade agreements, import and export taxes, tariffs.
Immigration accords!
We need know what kingdom's alliance with you restricts us from treating with.
We don't want to put a tiger and a lion in a box, now do we?
Tiger, lion, what?
Of course.
Croc, you go make Trimeville Xanthine. This is going to take a while.
That sounds illegal.
Yes, Mox.
With a bow, the The large beast set down his enormous pack and gathered a bag overflowing with a dirt-like powder. He sniffed the air and began marching towards the kitchen.
Now, I need to know how your people feel about the terminal period of egg adoption.
This was going to be a long night. What exactly was that anyway? Whew. I'm just gonna stop it there for now, because I need to have a quick break, because after all of that I'm a bit speechless. Oh my god. I really don't know what to say. It was all so sudden. Okay, I'll see you lot in the next video. Bye bye.